Hi, my name is Rachel Wang. My faculty mentor is Dr. Jane Lewis, and the title of my project is Designing Women. So to give a brief overview of what my project entails, I ask how women use clothing to design their own identity and femininity, but also how clothing is used by society to design women through science systems. I accomplish this by juxtaposing the 18th century emergence of the modern woman with her postmodern counterpart. Notably, both of these time periods feature significant media change with the rise of print culture in the 18th century and the rise of social media in our current society. Media propagates fashion trends and information about fashionable women, thus serving as an avenue for female self-design. And this is especially true for the 18th century woman who uses clothing to assert her autonomy and self-creation. And so this is the structure of my thesis, but for the purposes of today's presentation, I will focus specifically on the pairing between Song Jia, who is the modern figure we'll be looking at, and Pamela, the protagonist of Samuel Richardson's 1740 novel Pamela from the 18th century. So to briefly introduce Jia, she is a Korean fashion influencer and YouTuber who first rose to fame in the beginning of January 2022 on season 1 of the Korean reality dating show Singles Inferno. And she was specifically known for always wearing designer clothing on the show, and so this is why she became popular and gained fans. However, just as quickly as she rose to fame, she fell from fame by the end of January 2022 when her fans started to suspect that she might be wearing counterfeit clothing. And this might seem like a novel scandal, but actually, this already happened back in 1740 with Pamela. Notably, both of these figures existed in transitional economic and media settings, and they were also living in societies that have questions of social mobility circulating. And so they were both young female celebrity figures who are both eagerly and harshly scrutinized by people around them. And so this is an example of how netizens would accuse Jia of wearing counterfeit items by displaying the authentic version, which here is on the right-hand side, and the counterfeit version, which is on the left-hand side here. As you can see by comparing the two versions, the counterfeit version that Jia wears on Singles Inferno features a significantly thinner Chanel logo and differences in color and stitching as well. So when Jia was first accused of wearing counterfeit fashion, she posted a handwritten apology letter to Instagram, hoping to placate the masses. However, this did not work, and it quickly escalated into national outrage, with TV shows that had previously made guest appearances with her, editing her out of their episodes, and other shows canceling appearances with her, and even her celebrity friends began to unfollow her and essentially distance themselves from her. And not only this, but news outlets would make outrageous claims about her and her family, such as accusing her father of owning a sex salon, to the point where her agency had to step in and clarify that this was a false accusation. And so Jia posted a second apology letter before deleting all of her posts across social media, save for these two apology letters. However, this still was not enough. And what's particularly interesting here is that when Jia's belongings were taken to the Korea Appraisal Institute of Luxury Goods to verify their authenticity, only 20 out of 500 of her luxury items were actually fake. This means that the majority of her belongings are in fact authentic. And keep in mind that it costs a lot of money to purchase authentic luxury items. And so a question that begs to be asked here then is, why did people care so much? How was an entire young woman's budding career destroyed simply by wearing counterfeit clothing on a reality dating show? Objectively, there are a lot more important issues going on in the world today. So why did people fixate so much on her scandal in particular? And so it turns out that part of the reason is because the Korean public saw Jia as a gold spoon, which derives from the spoon class theory and describes the top 1% of high-income households in South Korea. People thought that Jia was a gold spoon, meaning that she was born rich and grew up rich, even though she never explicitly described herself as being a gold spoon. This is complicated by the fact that Jia would post monetized videos on her YouTube, where she would post designer hauls of luxury clothing that she bought. But when it was discovered that some of these items were actually fake, people were outraged and they called her a fake. And understandably, people were upset about this. But what's interesting here is that their anger appeared to extend beyond a typical anger one would have with a celebrity who does something wrong. In essence, they seem to exhibit a personal offense towards what she did. And it turns out that this is partially because of cultural values in South Korea. they have very strong values of honesty and morality, especially for celebrity figures. And so when these values are violated, it is particularly serious of an offense. And to add on to that, Jia lives during a time when there are rising class tensions in South Korea. Especially amongst Korean youth, there's an increasing disbelief in upward social mobility. And this is particularly evident when we look at data from the 2050 Asan annual survey, where when they asked individuals in their 60s why wealthy people are wealthy, they believed overwhelmingly that rich people worked hard to become rich. Whereas when they asked individuals in their 20s, they believe that wealthy people are only rich because they have rich parents, which essentially supports the gold spoon idea. And furthermore, South Korean youth are living in a time where there is increasing financial insecurity. Even if you get good grades in high school and you go to a good college, you can still graduate and have trouble securing a decently paying job. And this is all occurring in a relatively new capitalistic society. And so there's a lot of uncertainty and social angst for South Korean youth. When they see Jia, then, she becomes a bitter fascination, something that they don't have and wish that they did have. Jia serves as an escape from disenchantment in their own life. And through Jia, they're able to live vicariously and experience a fantasy of what life would be like if they were a rich gold spoon like her. And seeing Jia also serves as a concrete goal for them to one day achieve for themselves. And so when Jia's image of being a gold spoon was disrupted, by extension, her fans' identity and sense of self were also compromised, which helps explain why they were so personally offended. And this whole scandal can be better explored by looking at Jean Baudrillard's idea of the simulacra and simulation. So to explain what Baudrillard believed, he separates this whole idea into four successive phases. In phase one, he believes that we see an image, and this image is supposed to be an accurate demonstration of reality. And then next, in phase two, we believe that this image doesn't actually show us reality, but instead, it's a sort of evil appearance that hides or even corrupts what reality actually is. And then the next phase, the image pretends to be an appearance, but it only represents a reality that actually doesn't exist. And it can even disguise or hide this fact. And in the last phase, the image that we thought was an accurate depiction of reality actually is a simulation. And it's actually entirely disconnected from reality. And we discover that there even isn't a reality to fall back on. And so if we apply this idea to Jia's scandal for the first phase, the reality that we believe to be true is that Jia is a gold spoon. In this next phase, netizens discover that several of Jia's counterfeit designer items are actually counterfeit. And so the previous image that we had of the reality of her being a gold spoon is now corrupted. In the third phase, fake wealth influencers, who are essentially influencers who pretend to be rich and put on physical displays of wealth that are actually untrue, and this can include Jia, these influencers hide the absence of a reality where every single influencer in the industry is undeniably wealthy. This is not actual reality, but with the existence of fake wealth influencers, we think that this is reality. And so in the last phase, we discover that the lifestyle that we see of these fake wealth influencers is actually a simulation and is in fact completely unrelated to reality. And so it actually takes on hyper real qualities. So lastly, what's worth pondering is, why did Jia purchase counterfeit fashion if there was such high risk associated, and if she was on public television? And why do people purchase counterfeit fashion anyway? So these are questions that I explore next in my research, including some of these questions. Particularly worth noting would be Veblen and Simmel's trickle-down theory, which is part of theory of fashion. And lastly, I explore how Jia's modern South Korea follows the script of the 18th century in particular. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation, and I hope you enjoyed it.